Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. And a reminder on Tuesday night at 7:30 Eastern Time, I'll be joined by not Bram Weinstein, as I said yesterday. I'll be joined by Sam Fortier from the Washington Post. So we're going to go over all sorts of things, playoff scenarios, just touching on some things that Dan Quinn told us today, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So lots to go over, and so join Sam and I for our live stream at 7:30 Eastern Time on Tuesday night, and of course I'll be doing the live stream with the Gold members on Thursday. So, anyways, 7:30 Thursday Eastern Time. So anyway, let's get to this. So today we talked to Dan Quinn. I'm going to get to my play of the game, drive of the game, and some thoughts from the game in a few minutes. But first, let's start with some of the update on the news with Zach Ertz and Jeremy Chin. Both are in the concussion protocol, so we won't know anything about them until the end of the week. I know, like I think I told you yesterday, Chin was in the locker room, seemed to be pretty upbeat and good spirits. I heard from someone that Ertz was feeling pretty good after the game. However, that it's a concussion, so you don't know how that progresses and what's feeling good. So, and what that really means and how long that might mean. So, anyways, and Dan Quinn even said today that Ertz was feeling better. So, but again, what that means, no clue. So we'll see the rest of the week. Zane Gonzalez, who did not kick, he has an issue with his left foot. That's his plant foot. So that you've got to be able to plant and really to be able to drive on the ball, you have to be able to plant on your left foot. So he was listed as a full participant the last couple of days in practice. When he's ready, he'll be the kicker instead of Greg Joseph. So that's another one. And that's about it for as far as personnel goes. Tyler Biadasz will be back out there next week. He was sick, couldn't go. He's he's doing better, but not feeling great. So right now, but he will be back out there on Sunday against the Eagles. Quinn was not happy about the run game. He said it wasn't about how much they ran; it was about the effectiveness of it. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. And I would agree. I thought the run game was really, really bad, and I think for who they had available and who they were playing, and that they played some really good run defenses. The Saints have had some issues against the run. That's why I expected a lot better, and I think they did too. So to me, it was maybe their worst showing of the season, just because of the in that regard. And Jayden Daniels kind of compensated for it with his 66 yards rushing, which made it look a lot better. But the running backs were not effective at all. And it wasn't necessarily their fault. So anyway, then the other thing Quinn talked about, and this is one thing I like, and this is something I'm going to talk about with Sam too on Tuesday night, but I'll touch on it briefly here. He talked about how don't bitch about the officials, go do something to further to help your team or help the game, whatever. He didn't quite say it like that, but basically the bottom line is don't bitch about the officiating. In fact, let me give you the quote that he said. I'm going to look it up in my Twitter feed here, or X feed, whatever you want to call it. He said a lot of people can bitch and complain about stuff rather than fight and find a way. There will be bad breaks, bad calls. That's life. You can bitch about it, and then I added in brackets, or you can go get it done. And so I like that mentality, because I will say this: I don't think it's always been the case here. So, but I think they certainly have that, and there were a couple calls they could have griped about. We know one of them with the clock that was ridiculous. That should never have happened. I still will never understand why that happened. And then there are a couple other calls that were in the game where you had McLaurin. There should have been a pass interference penalty called on one of the deep ones to McLaurin, because the D-back got there clearly ahead of time. There was another time where I see Olamide Zaccheaus basically get tackled. It happened on a sack, but he looks like the defensive back kind of twists him and knocks him to the ground on the route. It wasn't called. So there were a few things like that happened. Now, anyways, there you go. And even on the roughing penalties that came up in the presser today with Quinn, his point, somebody asked him, what's the coaching point on that? Because it can be difficult to completely grasp that call or how it gets called. But his point was, you've got to adjust to the quarterback. So if it's a smaller quarterback, you've got to, if it's you're adjusting your aiming point based on the size of the quarterback, which can be very, very difficult to do. And we saw that with Dante Fowler, a couple of really nice plays. And, again, the teaching point is You just got to aim a little bit lower than what he did. So to kind of take it out of the official's hands, it's a little bit like sometimes with, cornerbacks to get handsy, you got to go lower, right? You can't grab up here. And Benjamin St. Juste does this too often. He grabs up high, get your hands to the face, you grab the pads up here. They're going to call it. You grab them a little bit lower, not going to call it. Not as often. So, anyways, that was something that Quinn talked about as well. And so, last thing is again, I talked about this yesterday, but Washington's in really good shape for the playoffs. When you look at the NFC West, for example, they have the tiebreaker over all three teams in contention. So if they get to 10 wins, they're going to be in almost assuredly because of that. And then the one team that really would trouble them would be Atlanta, but they can take care of that one by beating them in 2 weeks. That could be the biggest game that is the biggest game of the last three, unless of course they lose it, then it's the last one. But right now that would be the biggest game of the last 3 weeks. So as big as it is, and as nice it would be to get a win over Philadelphia on Sunday. Listen, if you beat Philly and Atlanta loses, then that's it. Atlanta can't top you. So there you go. So this game's important. But if you don't win that one, this is going to be a tough one. Then you got to beat the Falcons. So, anyways, let's get to play of the game and drive of the game, and all sorts of good stuff. So, with the play of the play of the game, to me, it's got to be obvious, right? I'm not even going to go to the last sequence there, because the play of the game is the touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin, the first one, the 16-yarder. A tremendous job overall by Jayden Daniels keeping that play alive, and then there you go. So to recap, it was 2nd and goal from the 16-yard line, fumble, penalty, knock them back. And here they are. So Terry's actually on the right side on this play. And by the way, for the game, McLaurin was wide left 17 times, wide right 10 times. That's a much different percentage from what it has been throughout the year. So there you go. For those who keep track of that, but I also felt like they sent in motion a little bit more. Don't have the numbers on all that yet, but it certainly felt like that. Anyways, on this play, he's on the right side. And it's important because he was not even really in the progression. It didn't seem, runs a little out to the right. And Daniels gets pushed to his left because Andrew Wiley gets not driven back. So that pushes him to the left. McLaurin just kind of starts as he's moving to the left. McLaurin kind of starts jogging a little bit down the middle and then realizes there's an opening and gets to the middle of the field, raises his hand as Daniels is kind of buying time over on the left side. And you see him, he runs near the sideline, he turns around, puts the ball, almost stumbles, braces himself on the ground with the ball, pops up, steps up, boom, and he hits McLaurin. So he extends the play for 8.04 seconds. The probability for success on the throw was 16.1%, according to Next Gen Stats, and there was 0.7 yards of separation from McLaurin. That's how tight that play was. So many things had to go right, but that was a special play by Jayden Daniels, and that he's had a couple of those this year, as you know. And I think it was a really good job by McLaurin, getting from the right, spotting the opening, getting the middle. What made it also tight is that Brian Robinson starts cutting in from the outside and almost collides, was brought into a collision with McLaurin, with the defender. So, but just a really, really good job on that one. I liked it because for Daniel, you've got to keep your eyes upfield. And that's one of the things I talked about before the game. And, I talked about yesterday is just, if you had a chance against the Saints to make some big plays, you keep your eyes up. Now didn't quite go how I thought it would in that regard. I don't think this is necessarily the best play that exemplifies or symbolizes that one. But nonetheless, he kept his eyes upfield, sees him, pulls the trigger, boom, touchdown. So just a really, really nice play. And then, of course, you can look at the 2-point conversion with Igbenogany stopping it. Nice job by him in man coverage. And, so that was a big play. And I also think the other big play as a consolation prize, a big play was the 4th down and 1 run by Jayden Daniels, in which you look at he gets out, he keeps his own read. There's a few defenders there, kind of jukes, kind of jumps, sees can't get outside. So he's got to jump, go up and jump over the pile. I had one of the coaches here told me it was ridiculous just to watch that, just what he did. And so it's just these guys marvel at what Jayden Daniels does. Anyways, so there you go. There's the play of the game. Kind of obvious, I think. So let me know if you have a different play of the game. Let me know in the comments. Drive of the game, and same thing here. If you have a different drive of the game, go ahead. But I'm sticking with this one because I think this is a tremendous drive because of the number of huge plays and just key plays by Daniels, by the offense, by a few guys on this offense. But just to me, it was a tremendous drive. And so it started with they're up 7-0, 11:25 left in the second quarter, starting on their own 47. This is after the Mike Samerstil interception. I will not understand what Jake Hayner he threw that ball, but Samerstil was in the right spot, picks it off, boom, they're in good position. So, but again, big play after big play. So it's second down and 20. And so, it's funny because like it's hard to pick that up. You know that. So second down 20, he hits just a really nice ball to Dyami Brown, breaking it on the right side. What I liked about that is he looks to the left off the snap, looks back to the right, just drives into the ball, even with the defender coming into his face. And so as he follows through, he's about to be hit, right? So but it's a really, really good ball. Dyami makes a little slight high, but good catch. And just a good job there. So that's second and 20. That gets you 12 yards. Third and 8, just maybe one of his best throws, and this was to Jamison Crowder, a tight window, decisive throw. Like he stepped into it like an outfielder trying to throw a runner out at the plate. Like you got to really step into that one, and he did. And he's just, Crowder just runs a hitch on the left side. Two defenders converge. Ball's there. First down. That was, it was a third and 8, and he picked up the first down. Then you have a second down and 11. And I'm bringing this play up because I really liked it. And it was to Alameda Zaccheaus, the screen. And the screens have been what Dyami Brown has been running. But here you go. You got a bunch on the right, a bunch formation on the right. The safety, there's 3 defenders over there. The safety is about 8 yards off the ball, kind of covering Zaccheaus, just over the 2 corners, right? About 8 yards off, but clearly ready for some action out of that bunch formation. So Kingsbury has Zaccheaus going motion to the right. Well, by doing that, the safety then drops into a split safety look. That then leaves 2 defenders against 2 blockers. Boom, screen passes Zaccheaus, cuts inside, 9-yard gain. And that's important because it sets up a better situation for third down. And on third down, but it was just, to me, a nice play design. Third down, so it's 3rd and 2. You have Daniels drops back to pass. Cosme loses his guy, gets up the middle. Daniels got to get out of there, and he's got to run to the sidelines, and you run outside to pick up the first down. Well, you have the linebacker from the Saints, good speed, chasing him, and Daniels just gets over there, stretches out with the ball across the line, barely picks up the first down. My guess is they would have gone for it there because it would have been that close if he didn't pick it up, but he did it. But not many quarterbacks are going to get that with where he had to go from the middle of the field to get over there to get those 2 yards was a big deal. So just a big run, only a 2-yard run, but a huge play in this series. Then you have the 3rd and 3. You have Daniels looking to Zach Ertz. And on the play, you have what I liked on the play, the Saints blitz. Jeremy McNichols picks it up. He picks up a linebacker. Now he gets knocked over, and so the linebacker could have continued, but Cosme comes over and cleans him up. So that gives Daniels time. He throws over the line. You have the linebacker shading inside, and the safety, Ertz cuts inside the safety. So it throws a beautiful ball over the middle, a nice ball over the middle, and leads Ertz into the catch. Ertz makes a tremendous one-handed catch. And then unfortunately for him, after getting about, I think it was about 7 yards after the catch, gets tackled, hits his head on the turf. That's when he suffered the concussion. So, but a tremendous catch by Zach Ertz, but just good poise in the pocket, really good job by the offensive line there and the protection in general. And there you go. Then the touchdown was the next play. So it's the 1st and goal at the 3. You have a little play action run, fake to Brian Robinson running to the left. Then Daniels kind of pivots back to the right because you had Zaccheaus who was coming in motion and then cuts back out and taking the defense away. Daniels looks that way, it's not there. Good move. Doesn't throw it. Then you have Sinnott running across the middle, looks there, not throwing it. And you have McLaurin coming from the right side, cutting across the middle of the back of the end zone, and he sees him, and boom, he gives him a nice ball in the end zone. McLaurin just kind of reaches out, slight dive, grabs it, touchdown, capped a terrific, terrific drive because it showed so much, but it was big play after big play, really good throw after really good throw. The catch by Ertz. So, they just a lot of things to like on that drive. If you have a different one, have at it, folks. But that's the one I'm sticking with. So anyway, so the other thing that Quinn talked about was the run game issues, and they were clear. And this team is going to have to run the ball a lot better than they did on Sunday if they, not just if they want to make to the playoffs, but if they want to threaten in the playoffs. Because if they're not going to run the ball better than what they showed on Sunday, I think it's going to be a tough stay. Now, I will say the one thing I really like from this game, and I'm going to get to this in a minute with Jayden Daniels. Well, you know what? We'll save it for that. There's a teaser. Let's stick with the run game for now. And so I know like Robinson did not have a great game, 21 for 65. The problem that with that 65 is that 20 of that came off the lateral. So it's not like necessarily it's a run, it's considered a run, but it's not indicative of what was going on when they had to run the ball from a traditional set, right? Because that to me is what they're going to have to do if you want to become if you want to really threaten the playoffs, you're going to have to be able to do that, and especially with some of the guys that are hurt. So and so 20 on that. You add 9 of it was on a play where he bounces outside because there are no holes, and he gets a stiff arm and gets 9 yards. So that's another 9. And there was another 8 on a 3rd and 23 run where they're not really playing for the run. They're okay to give up the 8. So you look at his yardage total, that's 20 on the lateral and then 17, combined 17 on those other runs. So more than half of his yards came on 3 plays. That means 18 for, let's do the math here, 28 yards, something like that. That's pretty bad. And so what was going on? And then, it's funny because I think to me, this may have been the worst blocking that they've had this year. And I say that because I think they've been pretty good. The run game has been very good overall, especially when Robinson is playing for them and healthy. And he was on Sunday. That's why, to me, this was very surprising. Now, some of it, I will say, and it's funny because I talked to Logan Paulson about this, but I agree with him. And the Saints were very, very physical up front, and I just don't think that Washington matched that physicality like they have in a lot of other games this year. And so I think that to me played a big factor in the lack of success in the run game. It happened. It was too often where you'd see guys shedding blocks, getting involved in the play, or guys not being able to sustain blocks whatever it was. I saw too many times where, sometimes I didn't know. And listen, some of this could have been with Tyler Biadasz out, right? And having Michael Dieter play. Now, Dieter is experienced, so I don't want to pin all the issues on him. Listen, I can put a cut up of one of his bad plays, but I'll tell you what, man, I could put a cut up of every one of these guys up front with one of their bad plays because they all had them, which is normally true, but it was more than what you normally see. And so, the tight ends, whatever, just not an effective day for the ground game. But you can, again, did Biadasz not being in there hurt? Of course, he's a really good center. I don't think that helps you when you lose a really good center for one game. He's really good at with the line calls, etc. So that's something that that certainly had an effect. Should it have led to this? No. Because listen, if Nick Allegretti or Cosme or Brandon Coleman miss a block or Andrew Wiley don't hold their blocks, is that because Tyler Biadasz isn't in there? No. Now, if it's a matter of getting the assignment squared away or not being fooled by blitzes, whatever it is, well, yeah, that's a center's plays a big part in that, of course. Anyway, but too many times I felt like they lost guys. I think there were other times where in the past few years, there were times, and I'd send clips to Logan, I'd send clips to coaches. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on with this run play because you do the math, and it's like, how is this guy left unblocked? And I felt like that was happening the other day a couple times. Now, sometimes it was a matter of not being able to get off a couple blocks. Sometimes it was like one time I saw 3 guys on one. So that something is wrong. And so there are a couple of times where maybe Coleman blocks the wrong guy, whatever. And so, that happened a few times in the game. Not used to seeing it this year. That's why to me it was noteworthy. In other games, I think sometimes they lost to some really good defenses. Maybe they didn't have Robinson in there, so but Sunday I felt like New Orleans really kind of won the physical battle. And again, I'm saying that, or I'm pointing it out because we just haven't seen it like that this year with this group. So, because I think they've been pretty good overall, especially in the run game. I saw like there were a couple times John Bates even got, I will say this, there were a couple times he matched up one time against Cam Jordan, kind of a tough matchup for a tight end. One time he's pulling on a play and Demario Davis just boom and just knocks him back into Brian Robinson. I don't think Bates is used to that. Like he is a good blocker, but that kind of stuff was happening. I saw, I mean, he again, those ends are physical. John Ridgeway, former commander, had a good game, and it's funny because I always felt he was better than Fedarian Mathis. I felt like Mathis made some strides this summer, but I always felt like Ridgeway was a more effective player, and I think he showed that on Sunday because he was pretty good. He plays with some strength. He doesn't let double teams move him out of the way. I think I know. I mean, they traded him. There you go. I don't know what kind of, if he was going to be a difference maker here, but I will say he played a good game on Sunday. Um, so there you go. Just to me, again, a completely ineffective day on the ground in the ground game, and they have to get better. If you can't run the ball better against Philadelphia, you are going to be in trouble. And but this is where Jayden Daniels comes in because I think we're getting to the point in the season where he's now played 14 games. Like he's still a rookie, even though he's never really felt like a rookie. But I also wonder, and I kind of asked Dan Quinn this too during our presser day, is he maybe at a point where he can handle more and they need him to do more because of who's missing. So in other words, you have let's say Ertz can't play, you have Eckler out, you have Noah Brown out, so you're losing people. But it also coincides with Daniel's improvement as a passer, as a quarterback, getting more experienced and knowing what to do, when to get rid of the ball, etc. And how much can that help or offset some of those losses? And sometimes it's a matter of, again, we saw it Sunday, there's some really well designed plays. If he and Terry McLaurin connect on two of those passes, which they've done, now you're looking at a 34-13 type game, right? Um, so like it was that close to being that kind of a game, even with those guys not playing. So um, anyway, so I think, but the point is that Daniels has really progressed and this team needs him to do maybe just a little bit more. And he bailed them out time and time again on Sunday. And I think that's what could we see more of that effort going forward, that he becomes the guy that we saw even more the guy that we saw last year at LSU win the Heisman. I mean, he's been terrific all year, but is there another level he can get to or needs to get to just because in the last two games he's completed over 80% of his passes. They've been getting more them, and he's been throwing more touchdown passes in the red zone, something that was more of an issue earlier in the year. So I just think there's some things that he's improving on that can help him. And when you're losing guys like this, you need that quarterback to maybe do a little bit more. I will say, I think if Ertz can't play, I don't think they don't have a tight end on the roster who can replace him and replace what he does as a pass catcher and a security blanket for Daniels. Ben Sinnott is not that same kind of a guy. Bates is a really good blocker. So you can do some things, as Quinn said, there are other packages they can use. They don't have to just use two tight ends. You can use three receivers if you want, because the way Kingsbury uses them, you can still create openings for them. Now, you have one guy who can be a game breaker in Terry McLaurin. And so we saw again on Sunday, there was no Noah Brown, there was no Zach Ertz for a lot of that game, and you still had three chances for McLaurin down the field that one was just a little bit too long. One was McLaurin should have had it, and the other one should have been a pass interference. So like that's how close it was to having a more explosive game despite those losses. I think a lot of that goes back to number 5. So that's where he comes in. That he is still able to. He's still improving. Still can he get to another level, or maybe just make some more of those types of plays where it's like, you're glad that he's on there, that, you're going to be glad that he's on your side, right? Anyway, he's really good in those winning moment stretches. That's why, when you have that 4th and 1, you have those that, the goal line situations. He's really good there. And it's why one person here told me, like, it's why he's good in the 2-minute situations. He understands when those winning moments are there. And so I think we've seen that again. So, um, listen, man, he had there's just some plays he makes that's like, okay, not many guys are going to do that, but he had the jump pass, basically a jump pass over the middle to Brian Robinson, defensive lineman in his face, jumps it over him, down, to Robinson, picks up 9 yards. 3rd down and 1, he picks up a 2-yard gain. Should have been an 8-yard loss. He gets a guy in the backfield grabbing him, and he somehow gets out of it. And for everybody worried about his weight, like he broke free, man, and he gets 2 yards. Should have been an 8-yard loss. Drive continues. A two in the stat book, 2-yard gain. It was really like a 10-yard gain because of what he prevented them from losing. So he has a 3rd and 14 with the 24-yard run, of course, where he, you know, slides, but it's just the way he swerves through the middle of the field is just, I'm watching, I'm like, oh, I watched that guy on tape in February. That's the play I saw against, Florida or whatever. But that's what he can do. And so, like, just big time moments, he makes big time plays. The 2nd and 12, he had a 2nd and 12 to Alameda Zacchaeus to pick up a 1st down, where it's just like a really good tight window anticipatory throw. He just does that a lot. And so, yes, there are things he has to do better. He's got to learn to throw it away a little bit more. We know that, and it's something that Dan Quinn talked about. But here's the problem: like, guys like that, it's hard because they are so used to making plays. I remember talking to Kirk Cousins about this when he was here, and Robert, talking about, not comparing him to Robert, but just the difference in their games and why in certain big ways he could do things that Robert wasn't really able to do at that point. Because, and same with Colt McCoy, like those guys are Colt, Robert, they relied on their athleticism to get out of situations. Kirk did not have that same level of athleticism, so he always had to learn how to throw. He's really good at getting rid of the ball, throwing it away, get to the next, live to play another down. Well, Daniels is used to what? Making big plays with his legs. So it's really hard to sit and say, okay, this time you should have done it. Oh, not that time. This time, yeah, this time. But in his mind, and guys like that, like, you can get out of so many situations because you're used to doing that. That's what you've been doing your whole life. So when is the right time to know when to get rid of the ball and just throw it away? Well, it's something that they do want to learn because he could have avoided a couple sacks had he done that. Now, again, some of those sacks were for 0-yard runs. So it's really whether you throw it away, you run out of bounds, then, is there a difference in the yardage? No, but just sometimes it's easier. Just get used to just throwing it away if you know you're not picking anything up. But so that's something to learn. But there was a 2nd down and 7 play where he picks up 6 yards. Now you could have made the case like, it's kind of tight. Maybe you should have just thrown it away there, but he doesn't. So he picks it up, gets 6 yards. That's always that internal dilemma, I'm sure, for a guy who has his skills that you can extend plays, you can make things happen. So sometimes you're going to have to live with those losses to get those gains, if that makes sense. And again, he can get better there. He's going to need to get better there, but you maybe he loses 4 yards here, 10 yards here, but he picks up a 24-yard gain over here or throws a touchdown pass over there. So there is a happy medium with it. You can't just say one's okay and whatever. You got to work on it. But that's it's not as easy as it sounds. Just throw it away because when and then is it, how narrow is that gap, does that gap have to be? And maybe I think that's also an experience thing where he's going to learn, okay, I've been through this situation before, this guy closes it really fast, or it closes faster than you think, just get rid of it, lived another down. Now there are other times too where he can be cautious with the ball. He had a bootleg where I felt like Terry McLaurin was kind of open, but he saves it, doesn't throw it, runs out of bounds. Now it's a sack, but it's 0 yards. And what I like on that, it just gets him to 2nd and 10. And he's only throwing 6 picks this year for a reason, because he's smart with the ball. Sometimes there are some times where is it cautious with it? Well, maybe, but again, 6 interceptions, they move the ball, they keep it, and he's not reckless. So I think that's a good thing for sure. Oh, and the ball, the pass to DeAndre Brown that was called back because of a hold, but man, again, just a sloppy game with the penalties, man. And it was a legit hold on Nick Allegretti. So, but just a good ball. gave De'Ami Brown a chance and a really good catch by De'Ami Brown. So that was good to see for his sake. He doesn't get credit for it in the book, but like the coaches see that. And when you lose Noah Brown, you want a guy to kind of do a little bit, you can step up in certain situations. I think De'Ami did on that particular play, but it certainly didn't work out. So, and then the sacks, like there were of those 8 sacks, like it's really hard to blame the offensive line for a lot of those. I there were a couple of times like Daniels did on the first sack. He's got Jamison Crowder wide the heck open on the left. Just and it's he knows that he's got this safety valve, but he never looks over there. I think he almost just forgot that that Jamison was over there because if he hits him, it might be a 20-yard gain. It was a really, really wide open play, and he looked to the right where Robinson was. Could have gained 3 yards on that one, maybe doesn't eats it and tries to run, but he had Crowder wide open. So there are a couple of times where either one time he breaks the pocket. If you keep your eyes upfield, maybe you see that you're not going to pick up. That's when you throw it away, or you have another guy breaking. Maybe you get a guy breaking down the field. I think it was De'Ami Brown on one run to the left. Um, a couple of times, there was one time he was unaware of a blitz coming. I don't know who that's on because that could be on the protection, right? And so I don't, clearly he wasn't anticipating the blitz because he's pretty good at reading that. He's pretty good at getting rid of the ball when the blitz is coming. Another time I felt like the line was fooled a little bit on some of these stunts there, and Dan Quinn said they ran more stunts. They did run a lot of stunts, sometimes in the run game, sometimes it was pressure in the pass game too. Now it didn't always result in the sack, but it did definitely resulted in some pressures. And so I think that was something as well. But like certainly he had a hand in probably about 3 of those sacks. Maybe I should have added them up. It's been a long day, folks. But there are, I just say suffice to say several of them would have been on and Dan's. And it's not always like sometimes it's also a combination of things. So you can have a guy give up a pressure, and then it's up to the quarterback. How do you handle it? There's one time where he gets a loss where I think he may have had a shot to Zacchaeus on the left side, but he also backs up. So the both tackles get pinched, but he backs up. And when you back up as a quarterback in the pocket, then those ends can peel right off. Now they're in position to go get you. So I don't know that he had to back up. But again, this is me talking like, what the hell do I know to tell him what to do? Not, but I'm not. But it's like that just did he have a shot there? So in other words, it wasn't. It's sometimes it's a combination of line and then how do you handle it. So I remember if you remember the RG3 game against Detroit, the 9 sack preseason game. So I remember talking to coaches here at that time about that game and the point, because I think some people were upset that Robert got blamed for some of those sacks. And I had a coach here, a prominent coach, who told me, yes, the line made mistakes, but you can't compound their mistakes by making another one of your own. So in other words, like, because there are a lot of times where, and Andrew Wiley told me this earlier in the year, like, listen, I make this mistake. He bails me out because he does the right thing. So there were maybe 1 or 2 times in this game where you wonder, could you have done a little bit better there to get out of the situation or to help the situation for sure. But again, to me, a really good game overall by him. He threw some terrific passes, and this is what you want to see from your quarterback going down the final stretch. And so he certainly looked refreshed. Again, 80% completion, more than 80% completion in the last 2 games. Really good things to see, and so close on some of those deep ones. The good thing for Washington is that those deep ones are happening each game. So you're getting that opportunity every game. It's just a matter of do you connect or not. And I would keep taking those shots. Those guys have a good rhythm. McLaurin was 7 for 73. He could have been well over 100 yards in that game. I mean, it was there for the taking. The good thing is, though, again, it's there most weeks. Now, we'll talk more about the Eagles throughout the week, but that's going to be a different challenge. And I think they're going to move him around a lot more. So they have to because they didn't do it last time. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the defense for a couple minutes and then wrap it up here. It's funny because Spencer Rattler comes in. He came in with a I don't give a damn attitude, it seemed. In other words, like, I'm just going to let it rip. And I think Dan Quinn talked about this. I can't remember if it was yesterday or today, where it's like sometimes you come in and you haven't been the guy all week or whatever, and you just go in there like, hey, you got nothing to lose. I think he played that way. And actually, it's like to his credit, like he did a good job. He made some nice throws. I think he made some ballsy throws. And he had the deep one. I think it was at the 39-yarder down the middle where he stepped up and stepped up and stepped up in the pocket. almost stepping into a sack because he steps almost and like Newton hits him right as he throws the ball. Like, but he climbed the pocket a little bit too much. But he unleashes a deep ball down the middle. And I'm thinking, okay, that's going to be a pick because you got Chin and I think Quan Martin back there. And I was surprised that the pass was completed. I did not expect that. But when you put it up there, sometimes good things happen. So, but yes, then another time you had what I didn't like. You had one time you have they went to a lot of three safety looks, and the Saints had two tight ends, two receivers in the game on this one. So you have Chin in there covering Valdez Scanling. That is a not a good matchup for a safety. And where do you think they're going to go on that play? And like I don't blame Chin on this because you're doing the best you can. That's not what he does best. It's not what he's on the field for. He's on the field to be physical, get in the box, which he does very well. But this time a tough matchup, and it was basically Valdez Scantling kind of runs down just shaded outside the numbers, or around the numbers. But the way Chin plays them, he kind of turns toward the sideline as if I don't, I think he was expecting maybe him to be on the outside of him, but I think he's going to need to be on the other side because you can't turn your back to him and give him the inside, which is exactly where he went. So that was a tough one. But again, Chin isn't equipped to handle a receiver. Like that's a technique thing too. And you can always play like you can, if you're in a bad spot, you rely on technique, you can get yourself out of a bad spot. But when you're in that situation, like it's not it's not what he does best. And he got put in a tough spot and the Saints benefited from it. But again, there's other things he does really well. So, and this is not about knocking his game. It's just about the coverage was one that I think it was a very tough situation for him. Then the other thing is Marshawn Lattimore. And this is the thing, zero targets against him. Really quiet game. But I also want to point out one play, and it's like showing the difference between a veteran and a rookie corner. And this is Samerstone. This is not meant to pick on Samerstone, to show you more, to highlight more. Watch how Marshawn Lattimore plays this play. And so if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this, I am putting up some pictures of this on YouTube to show you the difference. But on both sides, you have receivers kind of running quick outs, right? And it was a 3rd-and-1 play on the last drive of the Saints. So it's a key drive where they're both corners. I mean, basically, it looks like almost like a mirror route. So where both sides are running kind of the same thing, but especially on the outside. So Lattimore, they're both about 8 yards off at the snap, which is okay because if depending on play it, but if you're going to backpedal back off, it's going to make it harder to defend that. So you watch Lattimore play it. So they were both at, I think, oh man. Folks, I'm going to pause this and get my notes. Okay. So they're both aligned at about the 28-yard line. I think it was 3rd-and-1 from like 35. It looks like Lattimore knows the route. As soon as he's coming off, he starts to slide. He maybe takes a step back, but then he starts sliding to the outside, which is what's watching it's where the receiver's going. But he starts that just as or before the receiver is doing that. Whereas you have Samuel on the other side, and again, this is veteran experience. I think Lattimore just knows what they're going to run, and he was more flat-footed and ready to drive on the ball because you have to drive in that situation. Sanders still kind of backs up a little bit. And so when Lattimore breaks on his guy, he's at the 26-yard line. When Sanders still breaks on his guy, again, running the same route to their side, he's at the 24-yard line. And it's because he kind of backs up. So it basically left him a little bit off balance and to drive on the ball. Maybe they get it anyways, even if he handles it right. And again, this is not to pick on Sanders still, but it's just he's still learning as an outside corner, for God's sake. So this is part of the learning curve for him. But I think I'm going to guess when you're in the film room that they're going to talk about just watch how he plays it. And this is how you played it over here. This is and again, this is as much praising Lattimore to how he handled, because if they throw to his side, he may break that up. Now, maybe he doesn't. It's only you only need 1 yard, but he was in better position to drive on the ball and break up a play if it came to his side. Guess what? They didn't go to his side for a reason. But I think this is one where I'll be curious to see if that situation arises again, how does Sam still handle it? Because he's a smart kid. He learns a lot. And now you have a guy in the room who can help you with that. And you're like, why do you do that? Why do you do it this way? Well, it's because of this. Like they haven't had that guy in that room for a while. So now they do. Now you can say, like, you can pick his brain about how you played that play, why you played it that way. And you can see the results. Like on the one, it was hard for San Francisco to plant and drive on it because he's backing up. On the other, you have a guy in balance driving on his guy. So, anyways, fortunately for these guys, it worked out okay. And it's something that I actually want to talk about them this week. What I like doing is taking what I see here and talking about some of this stuff and then talking to players during the week about this, because that's where I learn more. And then I bring that to you throughout the week and a lot on Saturdays for my 5 things I think. Anyway, folks, that's it from me. Appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget, 7:30 Eastern time with Sam Fortier from the Washington Post. Join us there. Lots to talk about. 3 games left, folks. Playoff race. Man, 9-5, haven't been like that since 1992. Enjoy this, folks, because it's funny because I know there were some things that it hasn't been smooth. They're 9-5. You're talking about big games and games that matter in December. Embrace these times, folks. Talk to you next time.